2026. Very pleased to see you all here, and welcome to the members of the public. Hearing from you later. Are you wanting to speak? So before we begin, we are in public session, so I'm very happy to take.
Yes, but
Do you want to speak during the item or beforehand?
happy to speak beforehand. I don't mind.
Okay. Ollie, I mean, if they want to speak during the item, do we have to suspend standing orders?
Yeah.
Suspend standing orders. So it's whether what you want to say is a set piece, or whether it was like part of a discussion.
But also depending on what's said. Probably more part of the discussion, I would say.
Can we do that? Councillor Harris.
I can't remember because I'm just about to get the file up what item I know that the members of the public will be interested in. If it's first, can we jiggle it around?
Access restrictions, I believe.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yes.
It's not first changing places.
It's not changing very, no, access restrictions.
But we
That's what I'm assuming you're here.
Councillor Ellis is suggesting whether we could swap the
Swap them around and just do it first off. Yeah, that's good to me. We do that?
Do it after the minutes.
After the minutes. Yeah, after the housekeeping.
after the usual.
Yeah,
standard.
after the housekeeping. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll start then, and then you can stay or leave after that as you wish. Okay, so we won't have public speaking time now. You must speak during the session. So, apology. Well, Councillor Fernandez did send her apologies to me last week. I think she sent them out generally because she knew she wasn't going to be here. Have you received any other apologies?
Yes, Chair, we got apologies from Councillor Tully and Councillor Steenthorpe.
Right, excellent. So they did both. Did they send me in today? I guess.
No.
No. Okay, so right, we must encourage people to try and find subs. So, did we know we were going to be only 3 of us beforehand?
No.
Okay. Yes, I think we need to find a way of working out how many people are going to be on the committee before the committee starts. So we've got a chance to try and draft in other members.
You have someone in your group that helps with that kind of thing. Usually that's
I guess that'd be easy.
Well, with planning, Connor runs a WhatsApp to check beforehand, so
Right.
could try running that.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that, couldn't we? Just remind people to try and find a sub if they know they're not going to be here. Well, it depends how close to the meeting you know you can't make it. So if you booked a holiday, I think you know you're not going to have time. Whereas if it's illness or a sudden emergency, then it's probably not. Okay, right. Well, we are caught. Okay, proceed. With the items on tonight's agenda, so item 2, do we have any declarations of interest?
Usual one about being a volunteer for friendship. That should just go in. Do I have to even say that?
Is it?
Silly.
I don't know, is it partly on declared interest?
I don't know. It's common.
Thank you, Chair. I think given there's a specific item dealing with a matter in
Right.
your ward, then I would advise
Right.
declaring an interest.
Yeah. I do know that planning meetings, local councillors always admit that they are in their divisions. Right, so any other declarations of interest? Yeah, okay. So next item is the minutes of the last meeting that was held on the 27th of November. And I hope you've all had a chance to read them. I think it was a very straightforward, well, it wasn't actually straightforward. We had big discussions on a lot of items, but some updates. I remember the Bridge Street renewal, and but in particular that was it the tree policy that came to us, or the land adoption? It was the land adoption. So we had a good discussion on that. So, I was just going to ask, has anyone got anything they need to amend, question? We never have an item saying matters away, but I always think it's quite good when meeting was 2 months ago. We did actually have some action points. I think it's quite good. One of the things I was quite interested to catch up on, because I haven't had, is you volunteered, councillor Edis, to do the tender for the cleaning.
I haven't heard any dick about that from anybody unless I've missed an email.
Right.
So I'm chomping at the bit, as you can understand.
I can.
Yeah.
I understand. You'll probably be hearing very soon. I think
Oh, cool.
procurement have said that.
Good.
Yeah, we're finalising things this week. So
Okay.
I haven't heard anything back, so I think these are opportunities to find out actually what's happened to some of the decisions. Something else from the minutes, of course, part of the land adoption policy is there was a pledge, or there was stated that we were going to have a site visit of Orchard Grove, and I can confirm that a few weeks after our meeting, myself, Councillor Stainfield, and with Simon Fox, and I believe yourself, wasn't it? Yeah, we had a very good tour by a lady from
Taylor Wimpey.
Taylor Bumpy, and she did a very thorough tour. She was very engaging, a really useful visit. So just looking at kind of the open spaces that will become available, and part of the discussion when it comes to management companies or adoption. It was very useful to see, and also to see some of the SUDs and flood mitigation strategies that they are putting in place. So that was good. Right, so can I have a proposer for the minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Furman. Can I have a second? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Yes, yeah. So minutes have been passed unanimously. Okay, right. Item 4, forward plan. Up. So our next meeting is in March the 5th. As you can see, we've got the dog control public spaces protection order consultation coming through. So Somerset Council did one consultation last week, which I sadly had to miss. Oh, you went to it. Oh, do you have some information, Councillor Ellis?
Yes, I should have looked this up anyway, but just from memory, so they are going to do, there's a pre-consultation phase, which I'd rather like, which I think is at the end of March, it runs until Marcus. I can't remember. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's a pre-consultation phase. So there are various, well, there's various lack of bits and pieces of dog control, this, that, and the other around Somerset. And they're looking to kind of rationalise them all and do them all in one go, because they last for 3 years. And then you have to update them or agree them again or whatever. So they're trying to rationalise it. And yeah, they're PS in the form of PSPO. So some of them will say things like, for certain areas will say, dog fouling is, I mean, it's obvious dog fouling should be allowed.
Yes, and most people.
Yeah, well, or they might say dogs must be on lead, or they might say they might give a Somerset council officer the power to tell somebody whose dog's running rampage that dog should go on the lead. Anyway, so they were discussing this in relation to Vivery Park. So I said, well, we've had issues in French Weir. So we have a very ancient bylaw, which I think applies to this. This is going back to, I can't remember when, 1950. I don't know, ancient. It is ancient. So it's bit next to useless, and all it says about the dogs in the park is they must be kept under close control, which I don't know what that means. It's not defined, and they're not enforceable. You'd have to take somebody to court and then they get fined like 5 shillings or something, and that's not going to happen. Ideally, we would actually update our bylaws. That's a whole shebang, but it probably needs to be done if we're going to have them. If they're going to be there, they ought to be up to date.
Yeah.
However,
They do have to be reviewed.
yeah, they should be reviewed. They haven't been reviewed for like, I don't know, 70, 80 something years. But in any case, I thought, well, there is an issue. There is, I mean, in French where we do have issues with dogs sort of dog poo. We do have issues with dogs causing other people or other dogs injuries because they're not being properly supervised, they're not on the lead, and then owners nowhere to be found, yada yada yada. We do have Long Run, which is a kind of dog fest, you know, run free, yada yada. But French Weir, there is a it's a big flashpoint, and although we've got our little please keep your dog on a lead signs, that is literally a request. It's not backed by a rule that can be enforced. Plus they were put up, people have different opinions on this. Some people just think, well, this is ridiculous, it's too much of a restriction, and other people are like, this is necessary because that will help cut down on dog poo in the park, and it will also help keep people and other dogs safe. And it should, you know, it's a very high, very well used park, lots of children, lots of elderly people doing their walks in there. So the best thing to be would be to have a proper open democratic consultation on what should the rule be. And it should, and if we're going to have a rule, then it needs to be an enforceable rule. So I think that dog control PSPO exercise, if it is possible for French Weir to go on the docket of that, if that, I don't know if that's possible. They seem to be suggesting it might be.
Yes,
then that could decide the issue. The only downside of a PSPO, the upside is that there could be on the spot fines. The downside is, I asked, could enforcement be delegated to, at the moment, you know, Somerset Council officers would enforce it, but they have to have evidence, or they have to be there. So given that we've got street marshals, town wardens, yada yada, couldn't we be also given delegated powers, or could the PCSOs be given delegated powers? And apparently not. So that's a bit of a downside. But I just thought it might help settle the issue about, you know, either, you know, do we want a rule about dogs on leads? Yes or no? This would be an opportunity, if French Weir is on the thing, to have it properly democratically decided.
So discussion I've had with other Somerset councils, I know they're trying to tie up for the rest of the county, isn't it? Some uniformity. I was talking to councillor over on the other side of the county, and they have a totally different view on how dogs are treated now, or what access they have to their parks, full stop. So yes, I think it does vary from touch to touch, which is, I think, part of this consultation, to try and see more uniformity. I know it's funny, isn't it, because dogs are our best friends. They are our best friends. So, and we want them to have happy lives. And yes, when it goes wrong, it can go wrong quite badly. So I can see why they need this. The other thing coming up is the Taunton Waterway Steering Group. And I was just going to ask Mark, is really able to just, because
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just put that on there as a potential placeholder for now. I don't know that it'll definitely be ready for the March meeting, but the leader of the council's written to the key risk management authorities, Wessex Water Environment Agency, Council Rivers Trust and Somerset Council, because out of the waterway strategy work that the Somerset Council led on, there was this whole idea for a Taunton Waterway Steering Group when all those bodies would talk together, and there was a maintenance and management plan developed as part of that. So really, we were hoping to see whether the town council could put some impetus into that finally sort of being stood up. We've had a couple of positive replies already from some of the agencies, and we'll obviously bring back a steering group sort of terms of reference if we're going to be the host body for that as the most local form of government for Taunton. And then we can help facilitate that and host meetings. We're not the statutory body responsible for waterways, but if for an enabling role you as councillors would feel that's something worth supporting, then we can look to do that. Thank you.
So there are no steering meetings coming up imminently that we might be interested in going on to?
It's not yet a thing, so to speak, but a letter has been sent from the MPs as well, has been copied into the letter. So I'm hoping to bring it forward for you to sort of be that committee potentially of that.
I think Councillor Furman.
With the stewardship group, Will there be anything to update on in the next meeting? Because that could be quite interesting to hear what's happening with that.
Actually, it was an interesting one, isn't it? Because the aim of going round Orchard Grove last time was part of the steering group, wasn't it? Or the stewardship group. Yes, I think stewardship group met since.
No, Chair, I do need to follow up some of the recommendations. Like I say, we've had the site visit. There was a recommendation around using some funding to look at the management company option and then have that presented to the steering group, the stewardship group.
Steering.
And then,
Yes,
so
that's
that's
definitely-
on the list to be done, and hopefully there'll be an update for you at the next meeting.
Upstairs.
Just a big fat thank you to Marcus for getting on the case for the waterway steering group. I mean, it's so important. We, although as Marcus explained, we're not the responsible body. We're the ones as councillors and officers who will be fielding a lot of them. Why has this not been cut back? How come I can't walk along the path with it and covered in brambles? What is happening in the river? And effectively, we're the ones that have the biggest. We're closest to the ground, and so I'm really pleased that he's, him and Tom have trying to pull that together. I think it's really, really welcome. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, that's coming up now. I think it's more than noted just on the forward plan. Hopefully, I'll keep it in the back of my mind and watch out for it. Right, any other comments on the forward plan? No? Okay. Right. So, as requested, we'll swap item 5 and item 6 around. And so we'll move straight now onto improved access restrictions update. So I'll have the report from the officer first. So there's quite a lot of recommendations, which I'm not going to read through at the moment, because some of them come up with choices. So remember, recommendation 3 and 4 have choices. 1, 2, 5, and 6, I think, should be fairly straightforward. But access restrictions is something that, as a town council, we've been looking at for the last 2 years to try illegal incursions onto our parks and to protect our parks for the use of the local residents, and make sure that they are freely accessible and that they're not being used in ways that they shouldn't be. So we've come up with many options and implemented schemes, but tonight is about reviewing those and making some decisions on how to go forward. So, Emily, are you presenting this? Is that you tonight? All three.
It is on the front.
And as councillors, we're missing 3. Yes. Well, so you've been well and truly left in it there. So that's good. So right, so thank you for presenting. Look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update on the progress and challenges of the project to improve access restrictions in our parks and open spaces. This is in order to prevent unlawful vehicle incursions. Last year, the committee approved various physical measures, including telescopic posts, height barriers, and oak posts. Since that report, we've unfortunately received some complaints and have identified several issues. In regards to the telescopic posts which have been installed in pedestrian areas, they do not meet the required 1000mm accessibility height standard. Some of the posts have also been installed in unsuitable locations, such as on cycle paths. Once we were aware of this, installation was therefore paused while we undertook a full review. Review confirmed that a number of posts should be replaced, and ultimately this results in the need for 45 new posts, 2 pedestrian cycle bollards and 2 cycle hoops. A full review of all the defence measures can be found in Appendix 1. Stakeholders also raised concerns about the weight and usability of any replacement posts. It's important that we ensure that legitimate access can still take place. Officers have reviewed the following potential access restrictions. This includes steel removing posts, secured by padlock, lever down posts secured by padlock, and swing gates, as in a suggestion at French Weir entrance. Upon review of these, officer preference is to replace telescopic posts with removable steel posts. Example can be found in Appendix 3. These are heavy duty whilst being described as easy to remove to allow legitimate access. Lever down posts do not provide the same security as removable posts. A swing gate was considered, and it would provide a more visual deterrent. It would limit pedestrian movement more than posts would. We're asking members to provide a steer on the type of defence measures to replace the telescopic posts. Following this steer, key stakeholders will be contacted to update them and discuss the measures. We've also received concerns about emergency services access from stakeholders. All emergency services have been contacted and keys offered for the current posts. Keys have been provided to the fire service. We will contact all emergency services again when any new arrangements are finalised to make sure they can retain access when needed. There's also issues around the oak posts that were proposed at the previous committee. These were proposed around the perimeter of parks. It was initially intended that a metal rebar would be added into the oak post. However, due to safety concerns, this work can no longer take place in-house, and we've been unable to find external companies to install the rebar. As such, we're seeking guidance on whether or not to continue installing oak posts without metal reinforcement, and whether or not to explore any alternative solutions such as earth banks. It's important to note that we can't guarantee the proposed access restrictions will stop all incursions. However, they will strengthen our fences and make unlawful access harder. There's also a piece of work to resurface some paths at French Weir, and a budget of £30,000 has been included in the total £64,000 requested from capital projects. So this is to complete the necessary post replacements, additional installations, and the resurfacing work. Excuse me. The report also seeks allocation of the already approved £11,000 to put towards the above works. We have since publishing this report, we've had an email from Coach, which I will, with a few questions, which I'll read out now. First question was questioning what is wrong with a swing gate for vehicle access. They'd normally expect to see a gap for pedestrians, bicycles, and then a lockable swing gate for vehicles. A swing gate would have one point to be capped by the fire service, as opposed to the front 2 or 3 bollards to be capped. In response to that question, the use of the swing gate was first raised by Officer Massett's team, who believed it would be a good barrier, especially at French Weir. We would need to see that ensure that the entrance can accommodate it, considering the direction of the swing, ensure we're not blocking any driveways. And we would also need to ensure that a post is fitted to prevent the gate moving when open, so that vehicles can get through. The only concern raised about the gate was about limiting pedestrian movement. Gates wouldn't be appropriate at all locations or parks. So in general, steel removal posts were preferred, but a mix of measures could be used. So hence we're seeking a steer today on what measures to take forwards. The second question was regarding to emergency service key holding. We'd expect to see universal keys being held for all Taunton Town Council gates by both ambulance and the fire service, or Taunton Town Council having an out-of-hours key holder, preferably both. They have queried whether or not it's a universal key for the posts. So as I said just before, we have contacted all emergency services and offered keys. The fire service currently hold keys. We were told by the police that they were comfortable, they were happy with the access arrangements currently in place. They didn't need anything further. The telescopic bollards in place do have a universal key, but depending on whatever access arrangements replace them, we could look at getting a key like padlocks, and we would again offer keys to all services. The final 2 questions I'll read in conjunction, so both related. What is the impact of the left bank on the River Tone Flood Defence TTC5 project on vehicle access to French Weir Park? Has Taunton Town Council checked any access bollards will not quickly be replaced by floodgates introduced by TTC5? Resurfacing in French Weir Park given TTC5 is likely to have a lot of heavy machinery in the Belvedere Park, is there any point in resurfacing until that project is completed? A regular contact is made with officers at Somerset Council.
Sorry, just ask, can you just say what TTC5 is?
It's a flood defence project. Yeah, I don't know what it stands
Might be
for.
Taunton Town Centre Project 5, but it's, you can, there's a TCA, or there's more letters.
No, yeah, but I think, yeah, so listening, TTC is not Taunton Town Council.
I've got that with us. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so we're in regular contact with officers at Somerset Council about the project. We don't believe the flood defence works impact the areas we're discussing, but we will continue to engage with them to ensure that we're not doing work that will ultimately be impacted by that project. We're also arranging to meet with Coach with a date suggested for next week. So yeah, thank you. Sorry, it's quite a long one, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So, yes, I'm glad to see we've got some resurfacing going on, and I think it's important that we do have bollards that do not conform to regulations or recommendations by British standards, and so we are keen to replace them. So at this point, I shall suspend standing orders. Do I need a proposer? And a seconder? All those in favour? So at this point we suspend standing orders, so you're now free to speak. Did you want to say something first off and then?
Yeah, I mean, I know, so I'm here for Friends of French Wear, Janine's here for Coach, kind of interlink quite a lot anyway, and obviously Janine does Friends of French Wear as well. And I know that there's that meeting planned for Coach to meet up. Obviously Friends of French Wear want to be part of that as well, because it is.
And I'm hoping to come to that speak as well.
So some of the main things that we've kind of been concerned, and I know some of the points have kind of been referred to, is around the emergency access. That has to be kind of like our main priority. And we've had, you know, air ambulances in the park. We've had all sorts of things in the park, and they've had to call the air ambulance simply because they could not get in the park. You know, and that's a resource that's been taken from somebody else in need. You know, we were lucky that actually there was an ambulance crew at Tesco that could run over the bridge. You know, and sadly, you know, obviously Richard didn't survive. But there was an impact, and we don't really know whether it made a difference or not. But the fact that, you know, we had to get the helicopter and everything in. Yeah, it's a waste of time and money for people. It was obviously quicker for like a land ambulance, because they had to then get, the helicopter had to get, you know, the air clearance, then be able to get over to the hospital, etc. So it was
would have been harder as well if it had been a summer's day. The ambulance would have absolutely landed in the park, because there would have been people had to have gone there to clear the public out of the way first. So that was another concern, wasn't it?
Yes, no, and that happens given the proximity to Musgrave.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
How do ambulance?
I mean, I think the issue of not being able to get on the parks speaks loud. Why doesn't it to use an air ambulance for
I know.
probably a more chat.
We have had, you know, the police have had access to the park before, because we have had CSI and everything in the park as well. When there was a fatality in the river, you know, so they have had to have access before as well. You know, and I know that the fire engines have now got the keys. There's 4 fire engines that have got keys. How many fire engines do we actually have, you know, in Taunton? And you know, what about the rest of them really being able to kind of get to that? And like the ambulances, you know, they don't have the keys. I know you said you haven't heard back from them yet. I wouldn't want to wait until we review this. You know, I would want to be on that, because we've already had incidences, you know, especially with the ambulances where they can't get in. And obviously each park needs to be assessed on its own kind of merits. You know, we're not all the same, you know, and it's Frenchway is quite a high risk park. You know, we've got the water activities and the wild swimmers, large groups of young people and families. We've got a building pretty much made of wood. And, you know, and there's suggested vehicle access via Clarence Street, but actually that gets the vehicles just to go along the, you know, the pathway there as well. And now there's bins in the middle of the path, you can't actually get a
There's
car
no
around.
good route across the park, is there?
Anyway.
First of all, you've got then-
But
and
also,
which is-
the most likely area that emergency services would be needed is the coach
that
side
in.
Yeah.
part, because that's where you've got the main activity. So that you're taking them along the pedestrian route then, which.
No, and you touched on obviously the bollard height and everything, obviously the health and safety with that, you know, we know they're too short, and they're also, it's not just the height that there's a problem with, people who are visually impaired can't actually see them, and it's different colours that they're kind of marked up with that they can't also see, so it's also those things to kind of take into consideration, and it's great to hear it's going to get like resurfaced because it looks ugly. You know, the aesthetics, I mean, the fact that park equipment is just, you know, under review and we're waiting on what that looks like.
I'm certainly happy to support that.
It looks a mess.
Committee will as well.
It looks a mess, but I think the other thing that I wanted to kind of just sort of flag is that actually there's been no discussion with us before all of this. And I think it's really beneficial that when you have users of whatever service or area to kind of gain their perspective, because, you know, we know it better than anybody else, and actually could have saved a hell of a lot of time and money, and difficulty for other services and other people using the park, just to have been able to have had a conversation as part of that kind of planning side of things.
Yes, I know that we did go, I mean, Jack and the officers went to the fire brigade, I think just before Christmas eventually, isn't it? So whether he just offered them 4 keys or they just asked for 4 keys, I'm not sure.
I mean, I know the fire brigade have said that actually if they need to get into the park, they will just cut the bollards.
Yeah.
You know,
Very constantly.
and it will impact on how they kind of need to get to wherever they need to get to. You know, we did have the fire on New Year's Eve. It was a joy for us to be in the park at
Yes, I think
1 in the morning.
yeah, we are, yes.
And actually,
Yes.
the fire wasn't completely extinguished, and I had to run for watering cans and refill them with the river water to actually finish put the fire out. But again, that was right down by coach. You know, so it's just like a central point within that's not, you know, not going to conveniently have a problem up by where the access is, you know. And there's so many exit routes from Frenchware, you know, and Neighbour and Long Run as well. And we have the problem in the summer where people have their barbecues.
And you've got Long Run becomes a tinderbox in the summer with the hot weather as well. So, you know, it's really important. Emergency services can get in there. You know,
No, I think that's a priority for this committee.
Just think it needs to just be assessed properly, you know, and not just sort of one size fits all. You know, it needs to kind of really be taken into consideration of, you know, what are all the risks with this park and actually what would work to make that accessible, you know, for everybody and safe.
Jeannie, did you want to?
no, I think we're covering coach and friends.
So I think while we're in open discussion, I think actually discussing French wear would be a good thing to start with. So we've got the proposal of we also need to remove the bollards. The bollards need to go, and we have got the commitment to do that. We are going to remove the bollards. It's what goes in their place. So we've had discussed now a gate, or do we just replace them with different bollards? So, Edis, do you have a view on this?
I think the specific instance of French where it'd be good to follow up next week in a special meeting with park users. Because as you said, every park is slightly different. We've got 2 entrances to French Weir. The one that's most at risk and is most heavily used by the emergency services is the French Weir Avenue end. So I'm thinking rather than thinking about the removable steel posts, is the problem with one of the issues with what was there before was that they would go walkabout quite regularly. So if you've got something that is removable, the chances are at some point somebody's going to hoik it and it'll be gone, and you'll have to call, you know, search parties to find the damn things. I don't know how heavy they are, and I'm just thinking aloud. I don't know how heavy they are either, but there is a risk with that. They're not like there's no perfect solution, but there are drawbacks to the removable posts. I won't say anything about the foldy down ones because they seem to have been discounted. I'm interested in the swing gate thing because if you had a swing gate which is wide enough so that it will, and it's padlocked, so it's a deterrent, it will be wide enough though you can get, I mean, you'd have to, again, there's probably guidance on this, making sure that it was if we can, you know, open whatever way and it's not going to smash onto cars and all that, you know, basic stuff. There's probably enough width, I would have thought. You'd need to have either side, I don't know, 1.5 meters. I think that's about wide enough. I think how it actually is in sort of human terms. You'd need enough space either side so that cyclists and pedestrians could easily go past. And I'm wondering about that one. That's quite a cheap option as I understand it as well. So I'm just thinking, could that work? Maybe that could work. So for me, yes, it's at the moment in terms of what is feasible and doable, we've got the gate and we've got the removable steel bollards. Nobody else has come up with an alternative thing. I mean, we could put the old ones back, but the problem with them is you just I'm pretty sure I've Jimmy ones out once.
The keys to remove them are so.
Allen keys, yeah, and they went walkabout. They won't walk about, so we didn't feel secure with those. I don't know at this precise moment in time, and I wouldn't want to call it the best option. So that's for that end. Then you've got the Clarence Street end where our service vehicles go in, but it wouldn't be like, it's not really, you know, designed for like emergency service vehicles so much. I mean, I guess the police would, if there was a sort of riot or something, they were parked outside there the last time we had the fair. So that's different. It's possible. I'm guessing that somebody planning an unlawful encampment might eye up that entrance and decide, oh, let's try and, you know, get in here and just drive across. That's feasible. But so that's we've got to think about the two different entrances and what's will work for one might not work for the other. They're obviously different topography and everything. So French Square, I think, is tricky. I'm relieved that, you know, the council wants to remove what we've put in, but obviously, I mean, at the moment it's doing the job of not letting anybody in, but the problem is it's also not letting emergency services in. And maybe the thing is, well, whatever solution, if it relies on any kind of key or whatever, is that we will have to proactively make sure all of the emergency services and all of the key community users have the keys, rather than just saying, well, we've, you know, sending an email, because they get lost in whatever email doom. So I think there's a lesson there about the proactive side of things.
We first met was in September. I was heading off, to see the fire service that morning, and I told them that these things. And oh yeah, we'll go and pick up the keys in there. But their trouble is all verbal. So by the time you finish your service, everyone's forgotten the conversation.
They want to be given keys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think whether it's gate or bollards, it's going to be key access, and we've got to make sure that the keys are delivered.
So I don't know if it's possible to get for us to do a bit more looking at the gate option and what kind of a gate would that need markings. There's probably guidance on all of that access and all the rest of it.
I mean, one of the other options. Oh, it's Jenny. Go.
Just one local resident mentioned to me that the issue with having some of the types of bars that we're talking about is that they can still be cut, or they can get the universal keys. And she was saying about some local authorities are now putting in, when they're putting gates in, they're putting posts with something over the top to almost like a bridge, so that high-sided vehicles like big caravans things can't get in. Just that would be a consideration. Whilst you're looking at redoing them, it would make sense to look at the whole thing, because realistically you can buy these keys fairly easily if you've looked into it inside.
I mean, one of the measures we used prior to it, which seemed to work quite well, was one of those gates, the high-sided gates. Now, so because then you don't need a gate at all, you have perfect access. But high-sided vehicles, and they were designed to keep out unlawful incursions based on the height of the vehicles that they normally have. So there's that. Something to discuss, because they're not the prettiest things in the.
They ones where it's almost just like.
It's two metal bars, and you've got the one at the top.
Then other bits.
Yellow, aren't they?
Just thinking about some of the other community activities that happen in.
Yes, you wouldn't stop normal cars getting on.
But cars, and actually I would really worry about cars that would maybe drive along French Avenue at night in the dark,
not.
And just keep going and end
Yeah.
up in the river.
Yeah, so
Just thinking of dotties, you know. or-
they call height barriers, isn't it? So we use that, so that's an option, to be discussed. That's,
Needs to
to be discussed, or,
Yeah.
I mean, when I read this report, I was looking at 2.2.2.8, balancing both accessibility, security and cost effectiveness. And I just wrote down, and aesthetics. Right. Yeah, so because I think that's something that was missing there. I think what we want is something that looks nice as well. So, I mean, my personal preference is I like the steel bollards that they've got over by the brew house, and they're removable. They're quite thick. Nobody's going to chop through those, but you can remove one because you can get vehicle access to the back of the brew house, and it's where Eat the Bird used to be. I do miss Eat the Bird, I have to say. And so something like that. And I have to say, I have found some which we could explore, which I've sent to Emily. So, I mean, since we're meeting next week, is this a decision we have to take tonight? No, well, since we're meeting with the Friends of French Way next week, is this a decision we have to make tonight?
I suppose it doesn't have to necessarily be an exact solution, but we do need the budget approved so that we can
That's
actually
right,
take
yeah.
some of these measures forward.
Well, the budget, I think, is fixed amount, isn't it? That's not up for discussion, is it, the budget?
The budget is a quoted amount, but
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
depending on what the conversation is, there may be something to come back if it impacts the costs quite significantly.
Right. Because I am conscious that now that we've arranged the meeting next Thursday, I think we want to decide tonight whether we go for gates, bollards, or I think it'd be worth feeding back from our meeting next week. So
Be able to budget for the most expensive option so that actually anything is
As a bonus.
yes, we won't be able to change the budget on the report, will we?
I don't think we would have to get Gail's approval to
Yeah.
increase any budget.
So okay. Is there anything else you want to like say about French Way in particular?
Well, just on the aesthetics, because at the moment we've got a combination of solutions. Could obviously we've got the cycle hoop thing, and then the weenie bollard, and then the chunky monkey. So what we can't do is have a mishy-mashy. It's like have to think about the whole thing. This is rational. We've done it because of this, and it's designed for that thing rather than a bit of that, and I know, there's a bit of a gap there. I know, we'll stick something in. I just wanted to make that point.
Yes. So I noticed that our first recommendation is simply to approve the use of removable steel posts secured by padlocks. And that's something that's universal to all our parks, not specifically to French Way. Conscious that actually the solution to French Way probably still needs further collaboration. Councillor Fan.
I do see from the recommendations, it says to consider, so it's not sort of an absolute thing.
So on the budget, is there scope to do slightly different things that aren't listed on this report? Oh, you did mention that, the gate, wasn't it? You did.
Excuse me. Yeah, the gate's been mentioned up above.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think in locations where a gate wouldn't be feasible because it's too small, I mean, that's where the first recommendation comes in. But potentially we could have a recommendation about engaging and determining the site specific measures.
Well, I think the question I'm trying to ask is there scope in the budget we're allocating to say, or we're quite happy with, let's say we are happy with steel posts secured by padlocks, but there is scope and movement within the budget to say, but in this particular case, we would prefer something else. Actually,
Would you not want to consider each park by its own merit and location and community and use,
yes,
rather than have a
Yeah.
broad brush?
I mean, not every park.
Universal approach
friends
apart
of
from
group.
French Weir, because I think when the Goals were first put in,
Yeah.
somebody had put a post on the Friends of Friendship Park page, and it garnered so many comments about the ones in Garmington. I think Victoria Park got a mention, I think Price, lots got a mention, so it was clear that lots of people,
Yeah, so Victoria also has.
rather than making a decision to have a universal with everything apart from Friendship, maybe consider each park on its, what does each park, who does each park serve, what happens in each park, what are the risks of each park, to then decide, because it might be that several different parks need a different solution rather than having everything the same. And that consultation that Carly mentioned, that consultation with the public, because they will think of things that maybe you or risk assessors may not think of because they're not there using it every day.
I mean, I suppose, I mean, as the report says, we've got 45 posts to replace. It's more economical if they're all the same post, because
But it's
you
not
just
if they
can't
then
buy,
elect
if
wrong.
you're buying 10 posts for one park,
Yeah.
10 different posts for another park. Suddenly, there's a cost implication to that.
But then if it ends up to be the wrong solution, which is what's happened here, you've got all of that money. I think making sure you get the right solutions for each park is probably the most cost effective in the long run.
Yes, not making mistakes is certainly that's cost effective. So, yes, I do agree on that one. So, okay, looking at this, and so, I mean, recommendation one: approval of use of removal steel posts. I mean, what do people think about steel posts? What about think about steel posts that were presented to us on the report? I mean, I just put it out there, I'm not in favour, because being pivoted at the base, it's very easy just to cut through them, push them over if you really wanted to. I don't think they're particularly secure. And then the suggestion that actually sometimes you just want a deterrent. But I think if someone's determined enough, I don't think they would hold up too well. Councillor Fan.
As we said before, they can just easily be removed and get lost, and
Well,
not
these ones would be cemented into the ground and they just fold up and down. They're not cemented into the ground?
So the removable posts aren't the ones that lever up and
Oh,
down.
yeah.
No,
No.
that was the one that we thought would be the weakness, which he said. So if
That's the one example I saw on.
the example is this on appendix 3A,
Yes.
that one lifts out, it doesn't lever down. It's the
Okay,
example.
all right, so yes, so the picture underneath it shows it lying flat, you see.
Yeah, that's the, I think.
Hinged like that. All right, so B, the lever down, and the A was the, right, okay, so that one, yes. I mean, it's, so that one just pulls out.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah, okay. Again, they're all, I guess the trouble is a lot of these solutions is that it requires padlocks, which can be easily cut.
Yeah, one thing I do tend to agree with Janine. I think every park is different. Like, I mean, I spend a lot of time up at Taunton Green in your patch, and it's got some height barriers. You know, it's a totally different ball game for Taunton Green in terms of access and who needs what and yada yada. Totally different ball game. But I'm just curious about this whole key situation. So I'm just going to admit I don't really understand. So all of the solutions that we're looking at involve padlock and some sort of key. These aren't going to be universal key. They'll be key specific to that padlock or a set of padlocks. I'm trying to understand.
I think Emily has an answer to that.
We can look at key-alike padlocks, so it would be the same key for all of the padlocks. There is also, of course, the option of getting a coded padlock, but they're not seen as quite secure, so we'd have to do a bit of research into that.
But then otherwise, if they weren't keyed alike, would they be individual keys for individual? So
Yes.
This is the key. There's only one key, so nobody's going to go and get one on the internet. They won't be able to go and buy, oh, ha, 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 they put padlocks on and they spend all this money and I can just go and open it. That won't happen.
No, if we go to or purchase the padlocks and they're very heavy duty, we request a key like padlock. It would be the same for all the padlocks, but it's not a key that someone could just purchase online. No.
Right. How's it done?
I do like the idea of the gates, the swing gates, because it gives a very distinctive entrance to the site. And as I said before, there's only one point you need to unlock as such, and you can open it. So it's not complicated. And with the set of keys, you can obviously make it very individual for each gate, rather than having to have either like several keys for different bollards or one key for all of them, and it all gets very complicated. So I think gate would be the best solution for our park entrances, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, my view on the gate is I think they're good. Might depend on how wide the gap is, because would it be a single gate like a farm gate, which is very long? Because I mean that swings out quite a long way. I think some places they might start restricting on the road, take out the parking spaces, or and I mean we have to make sure they're not left open. Councillor Philman?
Yeah, sort of maybe going back to the past of trying to install kissing gates. Yeah, they obviously have one in Stable Grove that's been there for forever, but that's an easy way of allowing people to just go in and out of parks without having to open gates and things. And if an emergency vehicle does need to go in, then they could just use that rather than having to worry about gaps and things.
Yeah. That's good.
I think if somebody put a gun to my head now and said, you need something, pick one, I go, well, okay, then. Well, the telescope, well, not the removable steely ones, but I want to rule out the gate thing first, because I'm thinking, I'm now thinking, is that a runner? And I just want to understand if it's doable in that location, and then have a chat with locals about what we think about the relative merits thereof. But if you put a gun to my head now and says it's either this or nothing, whatever, obviously I'd say, well, Christ, anything is better than those little widdly things. But I just want to, I want to think about the gate option.
We're still open discussion.
Just on the gate thing, I think for the gate, if you've got a very distinct entrance and exit to the park, the gate works. But is it Galvington where it's quite a long empty, quite a long open?
Penny
gate
Fields, I think.
Work there.
Is that Penny Fields one?
I just remember somebody on the French rear post about our bollards. Somebody's gone, look at the mess they've made of Galvington, and where you've got such a long expanse, there were kind of periodic bollards but massive gaps in between. So again, it's looking at each area on its own merit with its own uses. And
I mean, we do have
Galvington maybe having a post if it's a space where there's no community events. If it's a space where it's only TTC employees who go in there, then maybe having the bollards, if they're cheaper, the removable bollards might work there, because it's only going to be TTC who are accessing that land.
I mean, the important thing is they're there. We're doing this to protect our parks. So bollards, I think, are very much for access. So then we're looking at bollards in particular when they're along a path. We have open posts that we'll discuss in a moment, but they're for a different scenario.
So the gate thing, because I live on Frenchville Avenue as well, but the gate thing, I'm thinking about actually how you go into the park. There is a post box. There is a lamp post that is not on the edge. They're right there, where there used to be the telephone box as well, which is no longer there. But the gate would have to, if there was a gate there, it would have to open into the park and not be able to swing out into the road, because there are parked cars and people turning around.
Yeah.
So it would have to go ideally inward, which it wouldn't, because otherwise you're going to swing out and hit a car. I don't know what the size of the gate is, or whether it's a split thing or But there is a post box there and there is a lamp post inset as well.
Yeah, which is that natural barrier in itself. So, yeah, I mean, I think these, yeah, so when it comes to French, I think this is discussion for next Thursday and sort of forward them. And Councillor Fern.
You could have a secondary post so that the gate swings out to that post and stops, so it doesn't hit into anything.
That would be in the road.
And
though.
No, I mean turning, swinging inwards.
Yeah, it couldn't swing inwards because there's a post box and a lamp
so,
post.
and Councillor Furman, I don't know if you're, what time is it going to be next Thursday?
It's
6, are you around at 6 o'clock? I think it'd be quite good to have as many of the city. Yeah, I think it'd be quite good. Some good ideas.
Might be.
So back to steel bars. I mean, when it comes to paths, we need probably bars, like the small paths, but we can't have the half-metre ones. I am keen on us investigating steel bollards, metre minimum. Got any views on this? I mean, so think about where. So the other side of French Weir, is it Clarence Street? I think, yeah. I mean, that's a very narrow lane. Do vehicles actually access onto that park? from that?
Yeah, council.
Just the council. So it might be a removable steel bollard there. That looks nice. Nice and aesthetic, like the ones along Brew House. And I'm thinking like Galvington, isn't it? You've got that narrow entrance there, where I mean, I think you obviously the more resilient the bollard, the wider it tends to be, and the more restricted. So you have to, I think, put them slightly back or offset from the entrance. But places like that where you want to stop people getting in on narrow lanes, I think is probably better. Well, then,
Only two things on the bollard bit.
Yeah.
First one is how heavy are they? Because if they're removable, we need to be able to remove them to gain access for events and things in the park, and like whether that's something we're able to do, and also like the spacing of it. We have like Cream Care over by Long Run, disabled users, wheelchair users, disabled young people access the park quite a lot. They have powered wheelchairs which tend to be slightly wider than some of the normal wheelchairs. It's just about the spacings of stuff as well.
I think it would be worth admit that I wonder if BS 8300 has something to say about weight of a removable bollard. That might be worth going back and checking on that one as well before making decisions.
Bollards that needs to be moved, but French Avenue be a daily basis.
Yeah, Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, on the ones at the brew house, I'm struggling to get a mental picture. How are they different on the removable post thing? Are they're steel, but we've been told we can't have ones that go down, telescopic.
Unfortunately, so most of them are cemented in,
Right.
So they don't move. Because I mean, you don't have to. I mean, like the entrance to French Weir, you can have probably 4 bollards cemented in because you only need to move the middle bits wide enough for an ambulance or fire engine to get in. That's all you need. So you can have the others. Unfortunately, I never saw anyone take out the bollard. It was taunted together. It was there. When I next came back, it was gone, and they were getting into the. So I know I've seen anyone take that, so I don't know how heavy they are.
Just another thought. I'm sure I read somewhere, and I can't for the life of me remember where, but some types of steel, it might have been stainless steel, are not very visible in dim light or something. I can't remember what I read about this, but presumably we would check all that out. The ones you've got in the picture look like they would stand out, but they've got to stand out against the background, and then they've got to have some contrasting something on the bollard itself.
I have to say the example I found, which apart from that, Emily, were steel bollards, and they're between 900 to 1200 above ground.
Yeah.
But they also came with an indented ring where you put a reflector. It can have yellow, red, any colour, but they did come. It's a shame I haven't got a picture. So I only found them on Monday, but during the major project. But they look really nice, I have to say. They didn't look. But yes, I do take the point that actually when we get wide openings that actually we just need a bit more consultation. So I'm not sure I like the removal steel posts that are presented to us in the report, but I am go for the removable steel post or not removable steel posts, and as necessary.
So the picture was an example. So if you do approve, like looking at removable posts, you're not necessarily saying you want that exact post.
Right.
It's just an example.
Can we change that recommendation from approve to investigate further options that we members are to consider, and that we like the principle of steel posts, but based on final design? I think we need to come back and
We're going to have to amend the recommendations so that we agree budget.
yeah.
Okay, that we've got to make sure there's budget there. But, and that agrees in principle that where appropriate, if we're replacing the bollards, we go for the ones that where we're doing a bollard replacement job, but that's where appropriate. And then we're going to have something in there about liaison and things subject to. So for French wit, I mean, the gate thing might be a non-starter for the reasons Carly set out. It might be just, well, it would never open, you know, you can't open that way. It can't open that way. Can it open that way? No. And that might just go off the table very quickly.
Something like James
Pending. Pending that, I'm trying to, unless I'm physically there, my brain is like, so that might end up getting ruled out quite quick, swiftly, or maybe not. I don't know. And then there's a discussion about it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yes, and I think
We
if
can
you
tweak the recommendations to reflect where we're at. So we want to get this sorted. Vis-a-vis French ware, hopefully after Thursday, we could at least be on the, everyone's on the same page, and then it's delegating authority to somebody to make sure that that's sort it out.
So I think we could approve, because we know we've got to replace a lot of bollards. We've got to replace 45, and I think I would personally rather go for the steel ones like we have out. I think they look nice. I think we will check how heavy they are. We'll check with the BS 8300, see if there's a recommendation on weight. That will be important. But so we can approve the use of removable steel posts, but still need to approve of design or supplier. That's my opinion.
Yes, are we still going for the 0.3 and 0.4 decisions? Or
Oh, well, now, whilst we have that engineering Carly here, we'd like to be part of this next part of the dessert. So, okay, so we're part of the person. So we are taking a long time about this one, but we discussed restricted access a long time, and we clearly mentioned so I think it is worth just. So should we have a look at 0.3 about installing oak posts without metal bar? So what do people think about oak posts?
Can I just go back?
Yes.
We need something around French way about nothing will be sorted until we've consulted. It's everything is subject to consultation, and that whatever solution we come up with, that's what we'll deliver for French way. If that can go in the recommendations, then I feel comfortable. I would need to be tweaked in some way. Vis-a-vis the oak posts.
So yes, we'll make a decision whether to. So we had oak posts, which are only half metre high, but they're not on a path, so they can be below the metre because they don't restrict a path out to the side. And the original intention was to put a steel rebar through them so that they really were unmovable, and you couldn't cut through them because you've got steel bar. But it seems we can't get the machines or the tools to put the rebar in. So it's whether we've got a lot of oak posts, it's whether we still use the oak posts. So any thoughts? And you're free to have an opinion on this. Since we're still in not standing orders.
Particular or?
So, but councillors, do you have any view on this?
I rather like there being oak posts, although in a scenario they could be removable. if they're around the edges, I don't think people are going to intentionally try and remove them. They're just almost there as kind of decorative, really.
Yeah, and are they concreted in? Oh, right.
I'll have to
Yeah.
double check, to be perfectly honest, I'll have to check the ops team.
Just thinking if they're along,
They are
if
concreted.
we're deploying them solely along, like, they're not on a pedestrian route.
They're not. So
They're
they're
around the
so
boundary of
penny
the park.
fields, so you've got that long stretch of grass along there. They would go along there.
Right.
And you already have the posts.
I think we do, yes, along there.
So again, I would probably do a sense check with locals to say we're thinking of putting them in here. And then if nobody squeals at you or nobody, you know, everyone or people think it's a good idea, then it's worth it. So I'm assuming it's to basically prevent people taking massive
You
vehicles
can't drive.
onto a playing field. So they obviously have a place. It's just make sure they go in the right place, and obviously that, you know, accept the fact that there would have to be maintenance. I'm guessing it matters how far they're spaced. So we can't, I mean, I can't remember what they have now. There was a photo about the Galmington part with weird things in the grass. I can't even, I don't know what even they were.
So Garmington was the steel posts, because I could remember seeing the photo, but they were set in the grass, but there was massive gaps between them.
Yeah,
So you could still get between them, basically.
You're going to use the shorter oak posts, say down at Penny's Field. It would be a nightmare for Taunton Town Council to cut grass around that potentially, but also if it's in the grass is going to grow and they're going to be a trip hazard. And you're not going to see them, are you? They sort of blend in aesthetically, but actually they sort of become a trip hazard.
I think the guidance is that because they're not on a path, it is more acceptable as a lower height.
Back to like what
We have in my area, there's a set of oak posts that were put in to stop incursions along there. It's a tiny strip of land between Quantock Road and Triscombe Road. And they work very well, but they also, not only are the posts in, they've also got the horizontal wooden oak bar that links them, also almost looks a bit like a fence. And I think that looks very nice, because the nice thing about the oaks is that they are aesthetically pleasing, they look natural, they're good. Can I just go to Karen?
Oh, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, yeah, better.
Yeah, well,
I was halfway tall they are. I was going to ask how tall the oak posts are.
I believe that they are 500 mil, I think they're.
I believe they're, above ground.
Yes.
500 mil. So,
Councillor.
Yeah, I'd just go back to saying I would want to get for 3.1 to install them with the metal bar.
We can't do the metal bar. So you be without metal bar.
Without,
Yeah. Councillor.
I think it will depend on the park. I think it will also depend on like what that strip is for. So in some of our parks, we're deliberately keeping the grass long. So we're saying this is a more wildy bit. If it was like a sort of manicured section where we cut the grass regularly and they were properly spaced and they would literally prevent a vehicle getting on and creating a bother, that's one thing that can work. But if it's an area we're going to let grow wild anyway, then they might be a trip hazard. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think they'd be along, because we'd be literally using them, same at Pennyfields where you've got the pavement and then you go onto the park. So we would want to keep them free. I mean, we can stream, we've got an operations team that can, when they cut the grass, they can stream around the oak posts. So yes, we wouldn't use them with the intention of just kind of secreting them amongst the earthwork. Of course, so kind of we think that the oak posts, I mean, we have a lot of oak posts, and I think we can still use them, but I think use them without this steel rebar. But if you could investigate trying to connect them so they look more like a fence, like they do up at Wells, it's along Wellsprings Road. And the other option, of course, point 4, as you may have a view on this, is whether we explore options such as earth banks. Now, I have to say, along Wellsprings Road, you have these oak posts, but they also raise the bank. They have to raise the banks in other places. What do we think about earth raising?
I'm not sure whether that would make a difference to the sort of I don't know the word for it, the topology of the field, especially with all the kind of flooding we've had. If we're adding different layers, whether that would create different areas that would, you know, flood a bit more than they usually do, and ruin parts.
Creating natural barriers to
Yeah.
the water flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too fond of doing that.
I'm just thinking of the oak post, and I know that there's a lot of work or money ring fenced to kind of sort the parks out and tidy them up with the play equipment and things like that. Would there be any kind of repurpose use for them kind of finishing off like perimeter of a new play area to make it look nice and somewhere like that? Because I know we've got some kind of post with rope on parks at French River, whether it could kind of finish off some of the park.
Well, I think we can resolve that. We'd like to keep the oak posts and we'd like to install them. And actually, so right, I think we might have to. I'm going to have to go back to standing orders, I'm afraid, because we will have to make decisions. But I think it'd be very useful having your input. And while you're here, so maybe that's what I have your input on that one. Councillor Ellis, one last thing, and then we'll go back to standing orders.
Yeah, just well, on the earth banks, you to talk to Jordan about that and whether that will be a helpful thing or not. Very helpful thing. But again, it's everything is going to depend on location. So if I were you, I would, for anything we're going to do, where yes, we have to change where we put in stuff that's totally unsuitable. It has to be changed. That's not an issue, but we need to bring people with us in terms of the solution for each location, having sense checked what we were thinking of proceeding with key stakeholders. And then you can also do like like Friends of French River has a Facebook group. We say we're thinking of doing this. This is where we've got, this is the feasible solution that everybody thinks is fine. And then, and that's another opportunity for anybody to say, oh no, but you haven't thought about that. What we can't do is we can't tie our hands. What we need to give ourselves with these recommendations is A, the budget, B, the steer about doing that engagement to make sure we don't make a silly mistake and end up putting in something different that either then causes a different set of problems or that people then raise issues with that we hadn't thought about. We need to have the flexibility, the certainty that let's agree a budget. If that changes because of stuff that we've had to do to accommodate local needs, well, it might decrease the expenditure in some cases rather than increase it. But if it increases it, then obviously we'd have to come back and get another permission. I just think, to be better safe than sorry, everything needs to be sense checked with the locals on the ground who will.
In which case, I think we should go for 4.1, which the recommendation is only to explore. That it's not. We will use. It's to explore. It's part of our arsenal to use. And I think they certainly worked at the Wells Springs Road. They might work somewhere else. We may as well give ourselves the option whether we use them or not. Whether we use that or not. So, right, we shall go back to standing orders. I need a proposer. Thank you. I need a seconder. There aren't any options. Well, we can't vote on it.
Okay. We're going to have to amend the recommendation before we vote on them, aren't we?
Well, that's why we didn't get.
Yeah. Okay then.
Okay, so we have a proposer, we have a seconder. Okay. All those in favour?
Just of the going back into session, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, this is standing orders. So thank you very much. Really punch through, so we're going to have that. So I think what we can do straight away is recommendation 2, 5 and 6. Recommendations 2 is to instruct officers to explore options for selling the unused telescopic posts with any potential income reported to members before confirming the sale. Recommendation 5, approve the allocation of the remaining £11,000 from the previous allocated budget to replace the current telescopic posts with posts of 1,000 millimetres or above in height. And recommendation 6, approve the allocation of £64,000 from capital projects 30,000 of which I believe is going to the resurfacing or French resurfacing, to deliver the security measures outlined in the report along with the research. Oh, sorry, yes. Just needed to read to the end. In the report, along with the resurfacing work set French rear. I think we're pretty. Do I have a proposal for those three? Do I have a seconder for those three?
You will, if that, would that,
I'm only doing recommendations.
Yeah, I know.
5 and 6.
yeah, no, I've got no, I'm just looking at number 5.
Oh, yeah.
What if we wanted to do something different and then the allocation changed because we wanted to spend X on something else or something? Do we have the flexibility to do that? Just in case?
Well, we could at a different meeting, perhaps.
Yes, because there's still some money left in the budget, isn't there?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
11.
yeah, that's the 11,000.
That is the 11,000.
Yeah.
So there isn't any more. So it's the 11,000 or nothing. I don't think there was any more than 11,000.
64,000.
That's-
I don't know,
Yes.
On
So
top, yeah.
on top. I'm just saying,
is there
um,
money in that budget? 64,000. The 64,000 is coming from.
I'd have to check with Gail from capital projects. It's-
I mean, we haven't stipulated how we're spending the 75,000 apart from 30,000 on the resurfacing of the paths.
could you just say, for 9.1.5, approve the allocation of the remaining 11,000? So that's the bit from the previous budget, right? Okay. To replace the current, and just said, or put a rider on that, so that it could be. I'm just thinking, say if we decide
Based
actually a
on
telescopic
telescopic
post is
post.
not the best solution for X area, then you've tied your hands, because all you've said is you can spend that budget on something very specific, but you might need a little bit of flexibility in case. See what I mean? Does that make
We
sense?
just leave it to replace the current telescopic posts with other alternatives.
Yes.
Yeah, we could just take out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With other
Yeah,
options.
yeah, then I'll vote for that.
Yeah, okay. So, Ollie, so we have approved the allocation of the remaining £11,000 from the previous allocated budget to replace the current telescopic posts with other options. Was that what I said?
Yeah, that's
Alternative options. Okay, so I've read out recommendation 2. That's recommendation. Do we need to propose the change? Yes, so proposer. Seconder. All those in favour? Right. Recommendation 5 is now changed. So recommendation 2, 5 and 6. 2 hasn't changed from my reading. 6 hasn't changed from my reading. 5 we've approved.
Yeah.
So proposer for 2, 5 and 6. Councillor Ellen, perfect seconder. All those in favour? Right. Okay. So item 1, approve the use of removable steel posters secured by padlocks. I mean, I would quite like to.
We've got some potential where.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marcus has drafted, so approve in principle the use of removable steel posts secured by padlocks and swing gates where appropriate to replace existing inappropriate bollards where necessary in consultation with local board member and stakeholders.
Excellent.
That's good.
Yes. What she said.
Yeah.
Do I have a proposal? Can we just read it out again, just in case?
Approve in principle the use of removable steel posts secured by padlocks and swing gates where appropriate to replace the existing inappropriate bollards where necessary in consultation with the local board member and stakeholders.
I mean, the only problem we have with these is the padlocks. We do need to get heavy duty padlocks. Padlocks can be easily bolt cutted. We will need to review kind of security. But I'm happy with that suggestion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll go for that.
All right, Poser? Seconder? All those in favour? It's literally 1, 2, 3. Right, so that's item 1. So now recommendation 3, I think we are happy to install oak posts without metal rebar. Do we have to do these in turn because they're just options? Yeah. Okay, so recommendation 3, we are happy to install oak posts, or to continue installing oak posts without a metal rebar. No, but instead of along the, because again, along the perimeter of specific parks, it's a bit, because I like the option of actually doing, should we, we are happy to install oak posts without metal rebar, along perimeters of specific parks, or something more general, within our parks.
I think saying specific parks is fine because we can just define where we want them really.
It's the word perimeter. Actually, I'll say it's not bad.
I think anyway, if we didn't use them all, they'd be in stock.
Yeah.
So we would be able to use them for other things anyway. Again, I would put a rider on this to cover any eventualities
Or for
with the
use in our
stakeholder for using our parks, you know, following whatever. Marcus come up with something, he's got a better brain than me. Something around checking, the sense checking. We're planning on doing this, checking with key stakeholders and public to say, does that sound like a good idea, or have we lost the plot? Do we think this is a good idea? We've got these oak posts. The plan is we're going to position them here, 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 all the way along there. This is their purpose. Do a sense check before you do anything. Yeah. Makes sense.
So install oak. So we are happy. We are recommending that we continue to install the oak posts without the metal rebar within our parks.
We're appropriate having. I don't know. I think you just need to check. You need to check in with every single park is different, and I'm just worried. Sat here,
I think within our parks gives us the scope to do them as we wish.
You know, as appropriate.
So install oak posts without metal rebar within our parks where appropriate.
Yeah.
And then in some wording in consultation with local member and stakeholders again.
Yeah.
Right. Do I have a proposer? Thank you. Seconder? Well, all those in favour? Yeah. Councillor Stainthorpe, Tallinn, Fernandez. Don't know what they're missing, do they? Right. And then finally, 4. I'm happy that we go with 4.1 just to give us options, flexibility. Explore the options such as earth banks views from the specific with cost we gathered and present it to committee for final approval. So the fact that it's always got to come to committee for final approval, yeah? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I think, yes, I like options, but I also like to have the final say. Councillor Ernst? Sorry, Councillor Furman?
I'll second.
Oh, right. Oh, I propose that, right, yes. So, okay, so explore other options such as earth banks to be used on the perimeter of specific parts with costs to be gathered and presented to committee for final approval. Yeah, so we have the final say. Yeah, right, all those in favour? Right, that was a very long discussion. You probably, thank you for staying.
We've done it.
No, thank you for your contributions. And I'll see you next Thursday. Council Head's providing the donuts.
Vegan ones, if they.
Okay, so item 5, changing spaces, review progress. I'm sorry, Emily, I'll read this. So we've had, whilst Emily's just getting ready, we've been out to consultation. We've had 35 responses. We've engaged with 2 local groups. Thank you very much. Good journey here. And a number of individuals, which I think is good. So these will be presented in the report. We have 2 changing places now. Well, we'll do by the end of the month, I think. But still aren't open till we've sorted out accessibility and other arrangements. So I'm hoping. Are there any decisions for us tonight? Because it's not on the app.
I don't believe so.
No, it's not. It's just an update. Yes. Right. So Emily, would you like to give us go through some of the details of the report?
Thank you. This report updates members on the progress of the Change Places Review, which last went to Ops and Assets Committee in November 25. Since the last update, the focus has been on engagement to understand the views and priorities of users of changing places facilities, and particularly their views on implementing access controls. Engagement included a survey questionnaire, focus group convened by Westall, a charity that supports disabled individuals, and also a drop-in session at Campus Disability. Feedback received, in summary, included a general support for some measure of access control, as this would help maintain safe, clean, and usable facilities. It also confirmed that changing places facilities are for use of people with disabilities, both with and without assistance of carers. So that's a change from the last report where we understood it to be with the assistance of carers, but that's not the case. People can use these facilities on their own. The feedback also included that we need to consider access controls thoroughly. The access controls we put in place cannot impede quick access or exclude people. It's not appropriate for us to ask questions about an individual's disability to determine their eligibility to use the facilities. We need to ensure there is effective signage, including braille, both inside and outside of the facilities. We need to also ensure there's up-to-date information on the websites, both ours and the Changing Places website, where we can log our facilities. And also alarms should be answered in answered quickly, emergency alarms should they be called. So the more detailed information on feedback is also provided in the appendices. Since the report has been written, we have had an internal decision-making session where we discussed access controls, emergency alarms, signage and procedures in order to make some decisions about how we're going to move this forward and get these facilities back open again. As I said before, we can't ask any questions about disability to determine eligibility, but we can ask them to agree to terms and conditions, which would include something along the lines of, for example, if they are to use the hoist, they have appropriate training. Of course, that's quite a significant risk that was raised in the risk assessment initially for individuals who have had the appropriate training. The options for access were also provided in the questionnaire, and this included either solely using radar keys, using a telephone service where you'll be given a key code, and an advanced registration system. User preference was very slightly higher for an advanced registration system. We've discussed these options internally, and as expected, using solely radar keys, the risk is too high, as it gives quite wide access because they are very readily available online to be purchased, and there could be quite significant costs in terms of rectifying any vandalism or damage. Feedback regarding the telephone system, there were concerns there, as we need to ensure it's inclusive for those who are deaf. And also, if we're using a key code, we need to ensure that those with limited mobility can actually input codes. So any keypad would need to be large, buttons, braille, etc. When we looked onto the advanced registration system, the user preference, that is also, as officers, what we considered to be the most appropriate way forwards. Users have said that they plan their journeys in advance, so where there could be concerns about visitors using the town and not being able to use the facilities, from the feedback they said that because their visiting towns is quite dependent on having access to these facilities, they do research this in advance, so an advanced registration system would not exclude them. That being said, for facilities nearby, for example, the library museum, they have offered to hold key codes and keys, fobs, etc. Should we wish to do that? Officers have proposed to use a fob system. Fobs can be deactivated, as we can have a record of the times that fobs have been used for the facilities. So if there's any vandalism, we can deactivate that fob. It also doesn't limit people in regards to using a telephone service or a keypad. But this registration system would involve an online registration system so people can use their accessibility measures online to fill out the application form as well. Using this kind of control also allows the opportunity, if we wish, to trial extended hours for these facilities as well. In regards to emergency alarms, it was very clear that we needed to use a monitored system where the alarm cord, when it's pulled, would connect to a helpline. So we've had conversations with Sunset Council, and we have said that they would be able to provide that service for us at a cost, and I believe that cost was included in the budget from the last report. So we'll be looking to continue with that. And as per signage, we'll be looking at including brown tactile elements, and also ensuring that any signage that we develop is then again gone back to the stakeholder bridge to ensure that what we're doing is appropriate and they're not excluding anybody. Finally, procedures and training. So we need to ensure that our staff fully understand what changed places facilities are, as it's despite reading guidance, there's been quite a few difficulties in fully understanding the use of these facilities. So we need to raise awareness within our staff for that. And we also need to ensure that the facilities have weekly checks. So the next steps involve finalising and implementing these changes. As I said, there's still some engagement to take place to make sure we're sharing any registration forms, including all the right information on our signage, and we will continue to give regular updates to the Major Projects Working Group. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
And thank you very much, Emily, and all the team who've taken time to go out and talk to Compass, isn't it? It's Compass, and a lot of the groups, and to go through. So there's been a lot of work and a lot of engagement there. So thank you very much. Councillor Fairman?
Yes, under 2.8.5, it says we went out to ask insurers about what we are doing and whether how much it will cost or whatnot. Have we had that advice back yet?
We have had advice. I'm just seeking it. They couldn't provide advice specifically about facilities. So when we went to discuss with them, it was to get their advice on the risk involved with having an open access. So they weren't able to advise specifically on. I've got it just in. I may have to come back to that just while I find it. Yeah, they said they didn't have any guidance for the specific situation. Their advice to the council would be to amend our current risk assessment, which we've done, to reflect the risks associated. So there's no kind of additional cost in terms of an insurance point of view,
Okay.
but we needed to make sure that the risk assessments were up to date. And they suggested, because this is back when we were looking to close the facilities while we undertook the review, they said just to make sure there's additional security measures to make sure that we can gain kind of forceful access. But it's a business decision ultimately.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, we have garnered a lot of really vital and valuable insights from disabled people and carers, both through the consultation and through the exercise that the West of England Centre for Independent Living carried out, for which I'm very, very grateful. So there's loads of really good stuff in their guidance and stuff. And so it was never just around the access thing, it's around a whole host of other issues. So we've got really useful input from that. I've got two questions. On the doors on these things, how do they open? Are they easy to open? Do they open automatically, close or something? How accessible are the door? And that was raised, wasn't it, in the consultation? I can't remember what doors we're planning on having on. That's one question. Second one is around, so where you think you're at the moment in terms of officers' thinking is the fob, advanced fob was the, narrowly the preferred solution, but then you'd absolutely have to have a backstop. Somebody's arrived, they haven't, applied whatever, because somebody travels around a lot, having to apply to each different local authority, they might just sod that. So you arrive, say you're in Castle Green, you're at an event, and you think, oh, I don't have a fob for the loo, but you go along and you say, oh, it's fine. If you were there, the museums, whatever, when the museum, so I could just pop in there or some other something, as long as we've got another mechanism for making sure that, because the whole object of having changing places is a quality at the end of the day. And if I'm in the centre of town, I don't have to go and ask somebody to get a special thing. I can just go. I can just do my business without worrying about all of that. I wish we lived in a world where I used to work for Radar. I was deputy chief executive, joint deputy chief executive at one point, but everyone used to answer the phone, and quite a lot of it was used to be putting your key, you could only get from, well, I think they actually had started to be available online, but normally you would ring Radar and we would ask some questions, and then you pay £1 or something, and then we would post you your key. If only we could get back to that, it would make life a lot easier. I think what we need to do is to hopefully, once there's a lot of work. I really appreciate how much work there is still to do on this. We'll have to monitor. So it might be that everyone says, oh yes, advanced fob, oh yes, this is the best system. And then after a year, people are like, oh blimey, I hate this system. I wish we could go. So obviously we'll build that in, won't we? We'll review it. Because the thing about the pad that you put your fob on, people can come and mash the pad. And that might just mean that the door is, nobody can get in or whatever. That's one issue with so they're not that straightforward, because that's happened at Taunton Green. One of the doors, your fob doesn't work because somebody's gone and mashed the pad. And another time, again, I'll use Taunton Green as an example. If you've got a fob for there, if somebody has actually physically locked the door, your fob is not going to do anything. There's a sort of other thing where they can physically lock it down, and that's a risk.
Inside or outside?
I don't know how this happened. I don't know how it happened. I don't know. I don't know if there's like an override, because this is I don't know if that needs to be. I'm sure that was mentioned. I can't remember if it was in the Wessel report or it was in the feedback from the people that we consulted, just say people locally. Somebody mentioned that, but sometimes for I know somebody said that in another town where they have the fob system, the fob didn't work because there was a second locking thing and somebody had locked it so that the fob didn't work. So we just need to bottom that side of things out.
Can I take it that we answer this because you've got a fob and that's automatically opened, I think they'll be available at any time, will they? We thinking, do we go around and lock them at the same time as we lock the other tools, or will they just be, what benefit they would be being available at 11 o'clock at night, but will they always be openly available? And are they having automatic doors? They put the fob on and it automatically opens.
I'll start on the automatic.
Yes, right.
They're not automatic doors,
Right.
that we've got in. I think, again, part of this review is that we haven't fully understood what changing places are when we've started these refurbishments. The feedback was that they need to be able to be not too heavy that someone can't physically open the door if they're looking to use the facilities. So that is something that we do need to look at, and Wessel have suggested that they could come down to facilities and kind of do another assessment. Of course, building control will pass it off, but they only have a certain level of understanding. So if we could get Wessel down to check, but yes, it's something that's on our radar about the doors. And then the locks, I'll have to check all the locks for the doors. I'm unsure if they can be locked. They can. I know our teams can lock them, but whether or not a member of the public can come and just lock a door.
Yeah. I'm assuming that's lockable from the inside, otherwise.
But no, I think this is the council in this other area. Whoever was the council must have locked them and then just not failed to open them at the correct time, and therefore it didn't.
Yes.
So that's that they would. Yeah, my assumption would be that they would be like you would lock and close, and we have people that go around and they would be closed after a certain time. It's the same with all of our other toilets.
But then I suppose there's no need to then you open them with a fob.
It was suggested during the engagement with Wessel that you could trial, say for July and August, where there's events in the town, you could trial a longer period of time. And if we use the fob system, then we can see what usage they're getting. And if we find there's a lot of usage up till 10 o'clock at night, we could potentially look to keep them open for longer. And if there's not enough usage, you could say, well, actually, yeah, we continue to close them at the same time as the rest of our facilities. But it's an option to look into in the future, definitely.
And when so Right, because I see from here, well, with question 2, that the majority are supportive of questions being asked. Seems that, but when they're applying for the FOG, we would ask some questions in, and will we post in the FOG, or do they have to come and pick it up in person?
It was proposed that it would be posted to the individual, because that way then if someone's visiting the town, they could have the form available for use when they come in. What's the first part of the question? Oh. Go again.
You have to watch it back.
Sorry.
It's gone.
It's about asking them questions. So while the respondents in the feedback from the kind of general questionnaire, they said they were having to have questions asked, Wessel said that while they may permit that so they can have state facilities, that's not actually the right way to go about it, because we shouldn't be interrogating the users. They should be open, and we are not in a position to determine whether someone is able to use the facilities or not. So we wouldn't be, as part of the registration, we wouldn't be asking for any information about their disability. It would more be about information that they are able to use if they're going to use the hoist, they can use it and they have the training, so that we're from a risk perspective, we've
Right, so it's that, yeah. And just when we're not supplying, oh, I forgot what the word is now. The hoist slings, we're not supplying slings, so they actually have to come with their own slings. Guessing they've got their own slings. Carers will know how to use them. Any other comment? Thank you very much for that update. So we're hoping to have this, looking at the timeline, by the end of March.
So yeah, the next steps are to look at procuring. We've still got, I think we understand that we still need to keep engaging.
Yeah.
So while that's the intention,
To open our changing places.
yes, we still need to procure the solutions, and yeah, but we'll keep updating the working group as well in case there's anything that's but ultimately we want to get these facilities open as soon as possible, but with the right measures in place.
Any other questions? We don't need to vote, do we? Just noting, we do need to vote. Okay, so we have heard the report. Don't propose that we have heard the report. Someone second that we heard the report. All those in favour that we have heard the report. Thank you. So, and lastly, and hopefully we can do this without having to extend. Street trading. And again, this is another update, but we do need to agree to allocate the 66,000 and to agree delegated authority. So we have a very hard deadline of the 1st of April. At that point, electricity supply will transfer over from Somerset Council to us as the provider. I know that officers have been hard at work on this the last several months looking at this, and the logistics of being able to switch providers, switch who is maintaining it and running it, and then how we're going to pay for it. It's not easy, so you know, phenomenal body of work here, and I'm looking forward to giving a summary of it.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update on the project to introduce a prepayment metering system for street traders in the town centre. As you recall, the purpose of the project is to ensure that from the 1st of April 26, traders are able to access electricity in the town centre through a cashless prepayment system. This is when the electricity supply will transfer from the to Taunton Town Council, excuse me. Since the last report, the project team has completed the technical specification and carried out a procurement exercise. We've contacted floor suppliers, received 3 quotations back. These were carefully evaluated against our requirements, and supplier 1 was appointed. Excuse me. as the preferred contractor. Their proposal met all the necessary technical criteria and provided the best value. As the cost was below £25,000, a full tender exercise was not required. So the system that the supplier proposed will operate using the prepayment cards that traders will purchase in advance online. They will then need to come to collect the cards from the Deane house. The cards will be tapped onto the meters to access electricity. We're in the process of assessing the most suitable payment system for traders to purchase those top-ups, and we're asking members today to delegate authority to the responsible finance officer to confirm the payment solution. Our focus is on keeping the process simple, secure, and as low administration for both traders and staff as possible. Installation is anticipated to take place in March. It will take approximately 2 weeks to install the cabinets, and then the contractor will return again towards the end of March to connect the meters, which will take about 2 days. We are preparing the processes and procedures for traders, and we'll share this with them shortly. We'll also be offering drop-in sessions before the system goes live to ensure that everyone understands how it will work and they have the opportunity to ask questions. We have general update prepared for traders to go out following this meeting to advise them on the outcome of the procurement exercise and also inform them of the next steps. We're also working through the operational arrangements around card security. While the cards themselves hold no monetary value, they do enable access to electricity, so appropriate controls will be put in place. A small cost for improved security is included in the budget. We also met with Somerset Council yesterday, and things are on track for the electricity transfer. We received some PAN numbers for the meters, and our legal teams are both in contact. Work also continues to gather information and costs around removing the reliance on the market house supply. So although a permanent solution was approved, it wouldn't be completed before April, Somerset Council have said that they are agreeable to the existing cabinets that are connected to the market house to still be used until the end of July. So today members are asked to note the appointment of the supplier, agree the allocation of the 66,000 budget in alignment with the report, and delegate authority to the RFO to determine the payment system. Thank you. Can we take any questions?
Lovely, thank you. Do we have any questions? Because it's getting to 10 to 8.
No, just because it's very clear report. Very
Well,
good.
I was just going to ask a couple of questions. So, apart from the supplier one being considerably cheaper, were there any other differences between supplier 1 and supplier 2 and 3, like in terms of the type of card they have, the access, the machines they're using?
No, we developed we got an electrician to help develop the specifications so it was technically correct for what we're looking for, but with enough scope that individuals, contractors can propose a solution. All suppliers came back with the same prepayment metering system as per the specifications.
So they all quoted to the same spec that we provided.
Yeah, they
Okay,
did.
so we gave them the spec.
Yeah.
There we go. Right, so I just want to make sure that we're just not going for that cheapest one, supplier one, because it just has to be the cheapest, but just not wanting to make sure that getting perhaps a system that's perhaps not as, I mean, obviously you don't need the Rolls Royce of systems, but you know, I want to make sure there wasn't any bugs in the system. We haven't got just got the cheapest, which is also that's a bit prone to error. But if they all were given the exact same spec and they all bidded on that spec, then okay, then I'm happy. Well, my other question is, what happens after July then, when the market has? So obviously, Somerset Council are going to allow us to use the electricity from the market house up to the end of July 2026. What happens after that?
Well, at the conversation we had yesterday, they are, open to discussion. So we'll keep informing them about the conversations on this side. Of course, the approval to actually undertake additional infrastructure rights, we haven't received that yet. We still need to get the costs to undertake the work.
Right.
The July deadline is what we anticipate as a project that we will be able to undertake that research, get the approvals.
Yeah, so I believe at full council, didn't we voted to have our own supply, that we wanted to completely disconnect from Market House have a home supply in that area. It's ours. There's no point in spending money, still be reliant on somebody else. So, okay, so we must the installation of the electrical system by the Market House that's going to carry on up into July.
I believe the recommendation was to explore it with costs coming back to council. I don't think the final decision was made to undertake it because we
Right.
haven't fully gathered
Costs.
the costs.
And I mean, I do feel we do need to charge the traders because it'd be a bit unfair if they're the ones act on the Market House and everybody else around them is having to pay. And do you know how much? How are you going to break the town?
That was a question that we discussed yesterday with Somerset Council. So the intention is that we would look at the meter reading, basically take that monthly and then
Right.
charge the cost base on that so that they are so all the traders are being treated fairly and paying
Yeah.
for their electric.
Yeah, I mean, I think that will be important, especially from the others who are now moving to the new system. We'll be turning up early to get the side. The Market House. All right, so that's good. So Somerset Council do have some meter readings, but electricity there. Right, well, I think those are my those are my questions then. So I'm happy with that. It's all to the same spec, so it's good. Suppliers quoted to the same spec. Right. The recommendations are that we note the appointment of supply one, and we are happy with the appointment of supply one. And we agreed to allocate the 66,000 budget, of which I believe 38,000 is still in reserve for the Market House.
I'll have to double check the figure, but yes, the remaining was to, where's my going to 36,850 pounds.
Yeah, so that's still in reserve for the market.
Yes.
You need to put the market. So I mean, I'm hoping full council go for that. I mean, I think we used the Market House electricity supply for our Christmas lights, don't we? Yeah. So, right, and agree to provide delegated authority to the responsible finance officer to determine the payment system to be used. When they say payment system to be used, there's another question. What do you mean by the card?
No, sorry. So when traders go online to purchase the cards which are then pick up, it will be the payment system that we use internally to receive the.
Well, that's my other question. So when they use the card, they tap the card onto the meter and it says, oh, you got 50 quid. So this says this, right, you can have the electricity. At the end of the day, what do they do? Do they tap the card back on?
Yes, tap it back on, the credit will be put back onto the card for use.
Right, so do I have a proposal? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? All this thing. Thank you. Right. So that was part unanimously or three recommendations. And that is it. And we managed to finish without having to extend. And well, thank you for turning up.
I wouldn't have missed it for the